Assalamu alaikum everyone. So in today's video, I'll be doing something a little bit different than normal. We all know what has been recently going around and happening with Palestine and the Palestinian people by the Israeli occupation. And we know that people are dying, suffering, and have some of the most horrible lives that people can. People are losing their loved ones. And this may cause doubts in many Muslims as to why is God allowing such thing to happen. And I have seen comments going around of people saying this exact same thing as to why God is allowing this to happen with the Muslim people and the Muslim Ummah. And even if they are suffering, why the worst kind of suffering? The loss of loved ones, family, friends, the loss of home, the loss of shelter, the loss of food, and basic commodities of life which are necessary. And people start wondering, if God is all good, all wise, all knowing, all powerful, why doesn't he just stop it? In this video, I'll be giving multiple answers, both from philosophy, religion, and a little bit from common sense. So it helps to clear the doubts. This specific problem isn't new and has been used for thousands of years to cause doubt. And it has been formulated in such a fashion, and I'll show you how. And the first one who is being recorded to have said this is Epicurus. So what he said is, if God is willing to prevent evil but not able, then he is not omnipotent, meaning not all powerful. And if he is able but not willing, then he is malevolent, meaning evil. He lets evil go through, so he is not all good. And if he is good, if he is both able and willing, then why is there evil? Then whence cometh evil? And if he is neither able or willing, then he is not God. Then, like, he is not all powerful and all willing. This causes doubt to many people, including Muslims. And in this video, I'll refute this. First, I'll be looking into the philosophical side of the argument and the refutation. Then I'll be moving on to the religious ones. And hopefully these themselves will clear the doubt. And by the philosophical refutation, I will show you that the Epicurus argument and the people who use it do not understand the Abrahamic God and the people of the Abrahamic religion, and hence this argument is not even valid for them. And by that being said, let us begin. So I have made this chart on top of the Epicurus argument. So Epicurus argument is from evil exists. It starts with him accepting evil exists, and I'll show how that is illogical as the first premise. And the reason that is illogical is because for evil to exist, a being such as God needs to exist. So saying that evil exists and then concluding that God doesn't exist is illogical at the very least. What I mean by evil is objective evil. Evil that is objectively evil means it is evil without anyone's opinion. It is in reality evil. Some of you, especially the atheists, might be thinking, what am I saying? Why does there need to be a God for there to be evil? Why can evil not just exist without God? Let me explain. The only way we can be sure that something is evil if it has been affirmed by God or a being like God. So we can know that it is evil. For example, some people say homosexuality is good, while others say it is bad. Now, how do we know who is right? They cannot both be right because that will be a contradiction. So there has to be a standard. And the standard that shows us it has to be objectively good or evil if it is from a being that is all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful, and all-just, and has these properties for it to conclude and not be subjective in any way. And as, for example, humans, you and I can make conclusions about morality, but they will not be objective. They will be subjective due to our lack of knowledge, our lack of wisdom. We can be wrong. So it will just be opinions. We'll never know what is good or bad. So God has to be all-knowing, because if a being is not all-knowing, then there cannot be any objective morality, because it will be subjective even to that being, because it will be subjective to the lack of knowledge, and due to that lack of knowledge, his conclusion can be wrong, possibly. God also has to be all-powerful. So when he transmit, for example, when he transmit these moral laws. There is no manipulation. There, the objective moral law which is sent to us in the purest form, and is not affected by any other measures, because if they are affected by other measures, it is no longer objective and can be wrong. And God has to be all just and perfectly just, because if he is not perfectly just, then he can make decisions that are not just. So the moral law that reaches us is not just and is unjust, meaning not the right one in a sense. So it is not objectively wrong or right. And one of the most important one is that he needs to be all wise, so he makes the wisest decisions and the wisest and the perfect moral law. With all these attributes, he can make the perfect moral law. I recommend this book if anyone wants to look at these arguments in more detail. And the argument totally gets refuted when we go to the attribute of perfect wisdom and God being the most wise. Why is that, you may ask? Because if God is all wise and he allows things that we think are bad to happen, it is due to his complete and perfect wisdom. And here is where I can move to the religious and Islamic point of view that refuse these arguments. And let's continue with wisdom. As I said, he may give us and allow things that are bad, that look bad to us, to happen because they are good. And we can see that in this hadith that says fighting has been enjoyed upon you when it has been hateful to you, but perhaps you hate a thing that is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing that is bad for you. Now people may agree that okay, for good and evil to exist, Allah needs to exist. But why is he still allowing that? Couldn't he just end this suffering? And why is he allowing the disbelievers to do this with the believers, the chosen people? Why is he doing that after he chose them to be Muslims? Why is he allowing them to suffer? And Quran answers this in the perfect way. So from this verse, it is clear that life is a test, and Allah will test you by the suffering, and it is a gift. It is clear by the verse that, and it says in the verse that we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and loss of wealth and lives and food, but give good tidings to the patient. And that is what the people of Palestine are. They are patient. Subhanallah. And it also reminds me of this hadith where it says, how wonderful is the case of the believer. There is good for him in everything. And this applies only to a believer. If prosperity attends him, he expresses gratitude to Allah, and that is good for him. And if adversity befalls him, he endures it patiently, and that is better for him. This is in Riyadus Salihin, and this is a sahih and authentic hadith. So it is clear from this hadith that this life is a test and it is a blessing. As Allah said, that when we are grateful and we show gratitude, it is good for us. But when we are patient, when we are put through suffering, it is also good for us. And we will be grateful in the next life that Allah tested us. Because in the end, let's be honest, if being tested and suffering weren't one of the greatest blessings, then Allah would have not put the prophets through trial and suffering, who were his most beloved. And with that, I end the video. Ma salama.